One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. We're seven commissioners? Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see that. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. It's 6:04 p.m. on the 28th of August. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I have the Old Glory here. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United
States of America,
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As you were. Thank you. Roll call. I don't think that we have to do that because I think Amelia can see us all, and we have a quorum here. So I will skip that formality and get right to public comment. Amelia, do we have any public commenters here?
We have a couple people watching, so if anyone would like to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen, and we will give you permission to speak and you can say what you'd like. I don't think we have any public comment tonight. No one's raised their hand.
Okay, I had we all received public comment from Ms. Liddell Jones earlier today to all the commissioners, and I think we will all have read that. So I will just add that officially that is has been received and that is noted in the minutes that we have received that correspondence. Next item is approval of minutes from July 4th, 2024. Lori, I'll let you drive the bus for that.
Muted, Lori.
Thanks, John. Yeah, those were all sent to you guys. I've received no edits. So if I could have a motion to approve.
Wait, I thought I sent edits. Did I send edits, Lori? I'm pretty sure I
Did you?
All right, that's all right. Anyway, yeah. Well, I did read them.
Okay.
We have a motion to accept.
Did you have edits though that you wanted to add, John?
No, I'm pretty sure. I usually read them and send them off to Lori or to Amelia. So.
Yeah, and I think John, this time, and I feel like last time also you didn't have any edits, which I received. So.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
We must be cleaning them up. No. Anyway, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
All right, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. I vote to support them.
Thank you, Lori. Any other secretarial comments?
No, sir.
Thank you. All right. Application review committee, Dr. Pinto, 120 Wilson Avenue.
Yeah, we have just one application to consider, 120 Wilson Avenue. It's the applicant is the Water Dog LLC, and the agent for the applicant is Landtech. And Mr. Ryder will not be here this evening, but he did send me some of his comments to present. Now, this was an application that we had looked at last month, and we tabled it for response from either the Shellfish Commission or the Bureau of Aquaculture, because it was mentioned about some scouring that had occurred during a previous dredging project that occurred when it was dredged several years back. But the applicant plans to dredge approximately 3,600 cubic yards of sediment from a 36,000 square foot area as part of the maintenance activities that they propose. The dredging will reach a depth of -6 feet, which is the mean low water level, with an additional 1 foot added for over dredging. And the dredge material is approved for disposal at the unconfined open water site of Willis, which is the Western Long Island Sound disposal site. The barge will access the area via the navigational channel, and the sediment will be removed with a clamshell bucket from the barge before being transported to Willis. And they talked about erosion and sediment controls will not be implemented. Now, as I pointed out last month, it was brought to the attention of the commission that there was some issues with regard to the last dredging project where the barge had ran over, instead of going over a navigational channel, actually went over shellfish beds that were owned by Mr. Pramer, Tim Pramer, and Mr. Bloom. And since that time, apparently Land Tech did contact not only DEP about that, but they also contacted the owners of the shellfish bed. And there was a discussion about that, and they did indicate that that the company that they plan to use this time is much more experienced and is instructed to avoid, obviously, the shellfish beds and maintain their travels through a navigational channel rather than deviating from the normal course of navigation. Dave Carey had mentioned that we make sure that the stipulation, it says here, let's see, Mr. Carey is the director of the Bureau of Aquaculture, and he stated that if we go along with this permit, agree with the permit, that the contractor should be aware of of working outside the navigation of not being working outside the navigational channel, and that there's certainly shellfish beds in the area, and that to again maintain again when barges are kept in that area, not to be left during a low tide area, and that we usually give directions from the harbor master to position those barges appropriately. And let's see, what is it here? That all barges equipment must remain within the established navigational channel, such that we be part of the application. Other than that, there was no other issues that were raised, and that I guess everyone seems to be, DEP seems to be satisfied with the comments that were made, and also Bureau of Aquaculture, so long as, again, we make sure there's a stipulation that the barges remain in the navigation channel and not migrating outside the navigational channel when disposal of the material. So,
John, for the walk bridge activity, we added a requirement for any barge operations for that project that there be a shellfish map on the bridge of all the vessels that were moving with barges in the harbor. And I think that's something that we probably should put into our language, that they have some idea of where the shellfish beds are when that, because they are mapped, and it's something it's shouldn't be that hard to get. It should be available online, and it would be I think it'd be useful if those were at the helm. Really,
I certainly agree with that. It's not a bad idea. They did. Mr. Ryder of Land Tech did mention to me that they had proposed to contact Mr. Bloom and Mr. Pramer, since the same area is going to be involved. The area of the shellfish beds is going to be involved. That the day of the dredging, that they'll contact the owners of the shellfish beds if they want to be out there and sort of supervise the barges, the barge navigation. So they did mention that, and it was also mentioned that perhaps I don't know if they put a bond up of some sort for any possible preventing any possible damage to shellfish beds, that a bond be placed prior to that. I don't know if I think that's been done before, where they issue a bond.
Did you ask Dave about that when he?
No, but I think I did mention that to Mr. Ryder. When he talks about to the DEP, that we might propose that. Yeah.
Sure if that's been done before, John.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But he did mention, let's see, where was it here? And that was mentioned by Mr. Hiltz. That's right, to Brian Golubowski, was it? Golubowski. That he suggested, that's right, that was suggested by one of the shellfish companies, that a bond, where is it here? But that was mentioned to the DEP. that a bond be placed. They didn't make any further comment about that. Okay.
That's the normal method for insuring against damage in construction would be to have the contractor post a bond.
Post the bond, yeah.
Yeah.
But as I said, but that was not, the bonding was required as a condition of Northeast Utilities permit and cable.
Right.
Permit. But, oh, yeah, now whether that's gonna go as far as the dredging of this, they did, how was it? They did propose a bond when Northeast Utility was digging the cables underneath North Harbor. But that was a little bit more of an extensive
I just asked him.
work, yeah.
I'll stay now.
Yeah, but I don't think that for a regular dredging of this size. that a bond
No,
would-
and they do have to carry commercial insurance and all
Sure,
that.
yeah.
I think the difficulty is, it is after all underwater, so it's not damage you can see by driving down the road and saying, "Oh, look, the sign is knocked over." You don't
Right.
see that. It's
Yeah.
so you have to have a diver
Go down and assess the,
inspect after they're done or
Yeah.
before and after or something, because it's
Yeah.
a very hard thing to document.
yeah, so apparently there was assurances made according to Mr. Ryder that the dredging operators are more experienced than the previous dredging operators that they'd used in the past. So I guess I'll have to take his word for that. They're using a different company than they did from the first time that they did the dredging in Wilson Cove.
But I do think we should, add to our comment in
Yeah.
general, that we have there be a map of the shellfish beds at the helm, on the move, when
Right.
these barges are moving. Because there are maps and it kind of takes the, no excuses away, like, oh, I didn't know they were here. Oh, I thought they were over there. It's like, well, they're on the map,
I'll
Yeah,
add to that
Mike-
that you cannot get out of Wilson Cove without going over a shellfish bed. No, I mean, I'm not saying
Right.
it jokingly. I mean, if you
No,
want
you're
to
right.
see, this is what it looks like.
You didn't pick up.
Okay,
Here's Wilson Cove, and it's completely ringed by shellfish beds.
Yeah.
Here's the fairway.
right.
So, navigation charts, they need to stay in the fairway and not, they can't, that Tavern Island's there. There is some obstruction for getting out of there.
Yeah.
But I don't know where they damaged shellfish beds before. You can't go this way. No barge can go over here.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, as I said, the two shellfish beds that were affected were Blooms and Tim Pramers. Where they're located on this map, Chris, I'm not quite sure.
sure.
But if we, again, put the precautions that Alan had mentioned along with,
You just call John. Let me see.
okay, along with mentioning that the shellfish owners, if they want to be in the area, as I said, that was suggested by the agent that he's going to contact Mr. Hiltz and so that he can contact Mr. Bloom and Mr. Pramer, that when they do the dredging, that they have somebody out there who is responsible for the shellfish beds. And then again, of course, our harbor master is in control with regard to instruction of the placement of barges in the area during proper tides. So that's our usual comment that we'll add to the application.
Well, what action we need to take, John? Is there any
Well, no, I mean, all we have to go ahead and ask that it's consistent with the harbor, because we do support maintenance dredging, and that this is consistent with the harbor management plan, again, with the caveat that we had indicated that, about having maps on board, making sure that the harbor master is informed of when the dredgers come into the area, and that the shell fishermen, if they pursue the shell fishermen who own those beds wish to be out there at the time that the operation takes place to supervise, that we can go ahead with the application.
David said it's not done typically because they don't want to have to go through the.
Right, well, that's that,
administering
okay,
the Bond.
yeah.
And Steve is not admitted yet as a participant. He's an attendee, Steve Bardish, if that.
Oh, he is.
Noticed. He has to be admitted to the meeting.
Oh, Alan,
Amelia?
yeah, Alan, Steve Bardish wants to be admitted to the meeting. Is Amelia? around?
Amelia's here.
Yeah, if he got the invite, he should be able to just log on. There's no way for me to admit him, but I'll send him the link again. Or if he wants to join as an attendee, I can promote him from there, but I'll send him the link right now.
He's an attendee.
He's an attendee.
He's called in.
He just called in.
I don't, oh, on his, it's the phone number. Okay, thank you. I will. I don't know if I can make him a panelist as a phone number, but I can give him permission to speak.
Oh, good. Okay, because yeah, Mr. Carey had just called. We just talked to Mr. Carey, and he said usually that's not as Chris McDonald had mentioned that this is a very difficult situation to have the barge owners post a bond for an area such as what we're dealing with right now. So that is not usually done. So
There's one other point. I read the document earlier today. Somewhere in there, it says that the work will take place the winter of 23-24, which is I think we've already passed the winter of 23-24 is what's in that document. I don't know that it should stop us from voting, but we should just clarify that it's going to become winter of 24-25. Is that correct?
yes, okay, right.
So there's a
Right. He probably
error in there.
obviously prepared the application in advance with the idea that it was going to be done, it would be done this year. Yes. Yeah. I'll make mention of that
But I don't think that should,
on the
as
timing.
long
No.
as long as we're approving it with that understanding that it's not already done.
No, I agree. All right. Anyone like to make a motion? We can move forward with this.
I'll make the motion, move forward.
With, again, with the,
Second.
that it's consistent with the harbor management plan and that we put the, again, the caveat that with regard to comments with regard to the maps, regard to safeguard shellfish beds, making sure that the owners are present, perhaps if they would like, and I think that was about it. I think those basically those two,
In winter of 24-25.
and changement of the date of when the dredging will take place. Call that
Mhm.
to attention anyway. Because they still have to put the application in. All right, do we have a second for that?
Seconded.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstention?
I'm raising my hand to
Okay,
abstain.
all right, I thank you. All right, so.
Yeah,
right.
we keep a boat there, so
And-
at the marina.
All right, so then we'll move forward with that and I'll get all that information out to the applicant. All right,
Anything else, Doctor?
that's it, sir.
Congratulations. That was a one-stop shop there. It must be the season. Next item is correspondence.
The only, yeah, I think, yeah, that's it. No, I think that was it. I'm sorry, there was something else, but no, that was it. That was it.
Correspondence, and I kind of did that back when we were with public comment. Is there any correspondence that anybody else has besides the Lynell Jones letter that I mentioned or email? Then we can move on from that. It's very grateful. Want to say I'm just so grateful for everybody's working together this summer. We're coming up on the end of the season, but you know, the Jeff with the moorings and the Marine Police, the harbor master dealing with the all the bridge construction and all that extra traffic, which is substantial, and just very grateful for everybody's participation and good attitude, and we get, you know, all kinds of positive feedback on that from most individuals. So, you know, thank you to everybody who's been in touch with the public on this. It's been gone very well, I think. I had a couple things I wanted to talk about. One is the state statute about permit fees only allows us to charge $200 for a mooring in Connecticut harbors, not just ours, but. And I had an opportunity to talk with Senator Bob Duff about that. And he's willing to, you know, to work with us if we want to change that state statute to allow a separate fee for commercial moorings. And we're kind of in the midst of that now with the Walk Bridge project. And it's been educational. We probably won't have a Walk Bridge, you know, project again in our lifetimes. But the contractor for that project nearly spit his coffee at me when I told him how much he would owe us for his mooring all those barges here. You know, $1,400. He just kind of reacted to, "You got to be kidding me." You know, that's just. So I don't know if we want to pursue that over the winter or something. Bob said he'd be happy to work on it with us. We'd have to, and it's a state, against a state law, to have a different fee schedule for commercial vessels, like barges and things like that. I know across the sound and a couple of the New York harbors where I hang out sometimes, the commercial barges are $5,000 and $6,000 a year. Norwalk, it's 200, and all of Connecticut harbors, it's $200 a year. So I don't know if it's something we want to get involved with or not. It was a sort of a state service project. Did anybody have any feelings about that?
I think it's
we
a
should
minimum
pursue it.
requirement.
Upset, Matt?
Yeah,
I didn't
I'm
get-
sorry, Chris. I think we're I think it's comical that we're using $200 when it costs thousands of dollars to move these barges from A to B. I think it's a disservice to the city that we're having a multi-gazillion-dollar walk bridge project, and the city is, I mean, my neighborhood of East Norwalk is like construction central. It's just ridiculous nonstop between the train stations and then 95 and the other, like, it just seems like it takes you 20 minutes to go, a mile. But nonetheless, to offset some of this, there's got to be some benefit. And I know there's a number of different infrastructure things that are coming our way as part of this overall package. But I think, whether this money goes to the Harbor Commission, whether it goes to harbor management, whether it goes to, anything along those lines, I think it's critical at this point that we increase those by a significant margin, because as your point with some of the New York harbors, we're talking $2,000-$3,000 a year per mooring, not $200 a year. And I think that whether it was just an oversight or something along those lines, that needs to come into today's dollars and bills, not something that was from the 50s or 60s that may just have slipped through and not been voted on for many years. So whatever we need to do, I'd be happy to help lead that, or assist with you or anyone else, whether it be with legislature or others, because I think that right now is a critical point, because no offense, people, Walk Bridge project is going to be a very long and drawn out project. And if it's done prior to my kids having kids, I hope that's the case, but my money is elsewhere, if you know what I mean. So I think it's in our best interest as a city of Norwalk to really get that in place.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
Well, as a matter of comparison, a 42-foot boat would cost more to have a mooring than a 200-foot barge. Because a 42-foot boat is now we charge at $220.
No, Chris,
it?
max is $200 no matter what.
Oh, that's max too. All right.
Yeah.
We got to get
So
bigger boats.
they equal out there,
Well, yeah. So the equal point is at 40 feet.
Yes.
Jeff,
Just
Dr.
to
Pino.
yeah, no, go on.
make a comment if I might. If you're going to pursue the possibility of raising the mooring fee, it's also would be appropriate to clarify the statutes about the commission's authority to charge a fee for commercial vessels. If you remember last month, there was a discussion about a commercial operation in East Norwalk, and when Bruce and I talked about that with the DEEP person, who's the liaison to the harbor master, we realized that there's some uncertainties about the municipal commission's authorities to charge a fee for commercial vessels. And so that's something that needs some more discussion. So it may require a clarification of the statute for relative to authority, not just the fee itself.
I think that's true. The thing about, I recognize, I go sailing Wednesday nights, and if you go out by Green's Ledge now, and those moorings are enormous out there, and they're all marked off with flashing yellow lights, all around that whole area now. That's the contractor's job to do all that. But I think that our marine police and our harbor master have a lot more to look after when we have all these barges around, particularly in the inner harbor. I think it's just a whole other dimension that we normally don't have. We just don't have those things sitting there all the time. And the potential impact if one of those were to get away or get pushed off in a freak storm, it could do a tremendous amount of damage to other people's property. And I just think it's the $200 number is kind of way out of the right order of magnitude for that. Yeah, Justin, do you have any feeling about that? If should we?
I mean, not only have a bunch of feeling as far as what you guys charge, but as far as it's only going to get more congested and more crowded once those barges really start being there in earnest.
Yeah, I think there's more work for you, I assume, right? More oversight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely more oversight and there's more risk, especially with inexperienced builders that are running at night and whatnot. There's definitely more of a hazard now that there's more obstacles to negotiate with. Then you throw the rowers in there, and then you have a lot of people out there with a much narrower area to maneuver in.
Okay. Well, I'm inclined to just with Matt's help to start pursuing this, and we may get ourselves a little committee together if you all agree that that's something we might want to do if it's worthwhile. Does anybody think it's a bad idea or not worth the time? No, I every time I've read that statute, I shake my head and say, where did that come from? You know, it's just there's so much that can associated with these giant things on moorings that it's a wrong order of magnitude for putting it there. So we'll pursue that. I also wanted to talk about Harbor Commission marketing. I just think last year because of Chris's contribution, we had the Amistad at the Oyster Festival and got some positive news or notice from that, publicity from that. But we really should be trying to come up with kinds of things that we can do that reflect well on the Harbor Commission and what our concerns are. And I it doesn't have to be a marketing program. It's kinds of things that we can do in our even just publicizing what we're doing, and with Chris in the newsletter and all, just of letting being out there that we're a positive influence in Norwalk and not a pain in the city's side, which I think we're regarded sometimes. So that's what I wanted to say about that. And if you have any ideas about things we could do, Amistad was a terrific thing, but there are other kinds of things. Don't have to be something at the Oyster Festival. There are all kinds of things that we could do that just benefit the community, and we can publicize that we're doing that. I've spent some time with the press office in Norwalk, just talking about the things that we do, and they're really eager to promote the harbor more than they have in the past. So it's kind of a good bit of inertia that's just starting to move in that direction. Do you have any questions or any thoughts? If you have ideas about how we can do that, just let me know, and I'll do what I can to get that going. Because I just think it's the more things that we can bring to Norwalk that are for the benefit of the people of Norwalk, things we could do and blow our own horn, the better it is for the commission in terms of community respect and all that.
Well, I thought, Alan, I thought we were also going to pursue the aspect of that, being associated with that oyster. Is it the Oyster Trail?
That's in the works. So Mike's not here, so I can't ask him about that. But that's certainly a worthwhile project in that regard. But that's the sort of thing that we can, if we get behind and do a little bit of marketing and PR work for that, I think it benefits us all enormously.
Well, I think so. Because it would be a shame because Norwalk is certainly the seat of oyster civilization, so to speak. With the Bloom brothers, et cetera. With the shellfish people that we have here. I don't know if there's any other community has the actual company that's located, in their harbor. We do, and so that certainly would be the focal point of hopefully of any proposal that comes forward. Let's say that this oyster trail, I guess it started upstate someplace. Where was it? Where did they get started with that? I forget exactly where.
Well, it was a statewide article in one of the papers about the whole oystering in the state of Connecticut that kind of took some of the fire away from what I think Mike was working on, which is more Norwalk focused.
Right. Well, I think we could certainly pick up the pieces and as I said, we have, we have shellfish companies here. I mean, and I think then, and then plus, Bloom himself oftentimes takes on, people who want to visit the oyster business. They go to the place and watch how he takes care, bags the oysters, brings them in from the boat, etc. I thought it was a very good, as a matter of fact, we did that about 3 years ago, where, he took people out, explained the process, came back to the the place there and showed us how oysters were separated and packaged, etc. I thought it was a very good, afternoon spent.
Yeah. It was great fun. And has a nice little private museum there too
Yeah, exactly.
from the industry in Norwalk. It's just really remarkable. I just think all those things are important for us to keep in our mind about about marketing the city, marketing the harbor, and what we can do to make it to help the community and to tourism. I think is very important to get people in here, whether they're oyster trailing or just enjoying the city and from the water. So the other thing was freedom of information request. Just so to let you know, the city has a place that those should be sent. So if any of us are, and in my computer in the water situation, I don't have that information with me, but there's and I will circulate that to you. But if we ever have FOIA requests coming to us individually, the city has a place to send the request, and it's really vetted by I know Amelia sees those and anybody else in the city, so that it gets the attention and response it should. I don't know, it's kind of doesn't make any sense for us to be managing those things individually and taking that on. It really is something the city is happy to do, and I'm happy to have them happen to do that. So I will get you the information if you should ever get anybody coming to you or sending you request. There's a place to send it. That's it for me, unless there are any questions. Moving right along, staff reports. Harbor Master Lavallo is not here. Does anybody have a word from Bruce?
I could cover everything from Bruce in my report. So
Okay. Consultant Stedman, Jeff.
Bruce was going to try to join us via telephone, but I guess he didn't make it. Yeah,
He may join us later, but he said he would try tonight.
Okay.
Join us. My report, it's not a whole lot. We're still waiting to hear about the grant application and that we submitted to the Connecticut Port Authority for over $3 million for rebuilding the Veterans Park Marina. We certainly won't get that amount, but we hope to get a substantial amount. But now we know that the board of the Port Authority doesn't meet again until October 15th. So the grant applications have been reviewed, but it requires action by the board, and they don't meet in September. So we should know October 15th if the board accepts some of that grant request. But then the allocation of the money depends on the Connecticut Bond Commission allocating it, and their meetings are not always held on a regular basis. So we still don't know about that grant. I think I mentioned last month that Mr. Hammond, who has been the acting executive director of the Port Authority and a very, very good person to work with. And in my opinion, he changed the image of the Port Authority quite a bit when he became the acting interim director. So he's in the process of retiring. He was to have retired by now, but they can't find a replacement yet, so he's stayed on for a couple of weeks. And I think that maybe next month or at an appropriate time, we might want to send some sort of a letter of appreciation to him for what he's done and with respect to funding the Port Authority funding projects in Norwalk. That's one thing. There's still no word about the being able to select a consultant to update the Norwalk River Watershed Action Plan. I mentioned last month that they put out a notice for proposals, but they didn't have enough money for anybody to bid on. So we'll see how that works out. Talking about the Oyster Trail. I didn't talk with Mike before the meeting, but I've been putting together what you might call an interpretive panel or a poster on similar to what we did for oystering in Norwalk. The panel is down on the west side of Veterans Park now, looking across at the old Raydale Oyster House. So we've been using the images for this. We've been using the images of on the WPA murals that are in City Hall and also the old shellfish maps. So that'll be something maybe next month you take a look at, decide how to use that, either to make another interpretive panel or maybe two, or just simply broadcast that on the city's website and in other locations. We talked last month, our concern about at that point, it was the proposed draft decision on the Eversource matter from the DEP public hearing. And we talked about writing a letter expressing our concerns about the draft that was prepared by both DEEP and of course the applicant, which is Eversource. During the last month's meeting, we received during the meeting the final decision by the hearing officer. So that process is over now. But as we talked about, and as the Shellfish Commission would like to do, John and I have been talking about it, that it would still be appropriate to write a letter expressing concerns about how that process unfolded for the purpose of making constructive criticisms. And the two big flaws that we had talked about was that there wasn't an adequate description of the project by the applicant during the public comment period, and that the documents that were submitted during the public comment period are not available for the public review. And those, it seems, are matters that could be corrected in future public hearings held by DEEP. The other issue is when you read, of course, you have the final decision. It makes the statement that DEEP determined that the proposal is consistent with the Norwalk Harbor Management. Now, I think it's a very good question to ask. Under what authority, statutory or otherwise, does DEEP have the ability to make that determination, and how did they make the determination? And it's interesting, this came up some years ago in Stamford with the same sort of decision by DEEP. And the Stamford Harbor Management Commission, and with assistance from an attorney, wrote to DEEP asking to explain itself, but never got a response. And we feel that's the third topic to put in this letter. They determine it's consistent. What's their authority to do so, and how did they determine that? So that's John and I have been working on a draft letter, but those are the 3 points that we talked about.
Hey, Jeff, I'd add to that. My sense is that there was really very little communication within the city about what was going on either. It seems like the different offices were sort of taking the lead independently, with really all the city interests really weren't brought into the process either from our side of it, which I think is something the city has to address internally as well, about who has an opinion here, whose opinion is valuable, and who should we be talking to, rather than people stepping in and saying, well, I'm in charge,
Well, but the commission has a specific responsibility, that's independent of the others, to look at the harbor management plan and make recommendations. But the other thing that's interesting, and I was thinking about this, the parties to this hearing were the applicant who wants the permit, and DEEP, which indicated its intention to give the permit. And then they worked together on the proposed final ruling or decision. This was an issue that came up in the discussions of the Connecticut Siting Council, similar issue. And of course, it led to a bill that they call the bill to reform the Siting Council. But it allowed for, in the Siting Council's hearings and decisions, the provision for having an outside expert be involved. So it gives some sort of a sense from the public to have confidence that the decision is not, not a foregone conclusion. I don't know how we can deal with that now, but the point is you had the applicant and the entity that wants to give the permit agreeing to give the permit, and without anyway, that's another topic, but it was discussed in the site with reference to the need to reform the Connecticut Siting Council. And one of the reforms was in those hearings, there needs to be a provision for an outside expert to be involved, an independent expert to provide comments in the hearing process. But but we'll have the draft in probably by next week for you to look at.
We're still the only commission in Norwalk that has the authority to review an application.
But that was the purpose of the Harbor Management Act.
That's correct.
Because
That's correct.
this is not within planning and
So we have
zoning
the right to take the lead, certainly on that proposal.
or independent.
Independent role, right? So.
Thank you, Jeff. Is that all, you all set?
I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Commissioner Bartis, are you here?
He's in the car and he was asking to get the numbers to call in. So he just recently said that he had joined as an attendee, but not with the ability to speak.
I think he's the 617 number, I think.
Let's see. Bear with me.
Amelia, you're in charge of allowing the phone connection or something to speak?
Yeah, I promoted the one phone number that was an attendee to allow them to speak. So if he unmutes himself, he should be able to.
He is the 617 number.
Could we get a hold of him? Maybe.
Let's see. I'll call.
I have his number here.
I think if you're not on the Zoom app, if you're on the phone, you need to press 6 to unmute.
*6.
*6.
*6, thank you.
There was a
Great.
There
was
you
a
go.
*6 that worked. Thank you so much, Amelia, and thank you, commissioners. So just really quickly from my side, the commission will discuss Wilson Cove next Thursday night. Like Commissioner Jones, I have a business relationship with the applicant, so I won't have any further comment on that tonight nor during that meeting. So I'll recuse myself and abstain from any vote. Also next Thursday night, we have another application from Mr. Hiltz, his latest on Shorefront Park, which I believe we should get through. And I would just like to add to the suggestion box, should the commission speak with Senator Duff, that should the commercial oyster fleet, commercial shellfishing fleet need a mooring, that they be exempt from the commercial charge, or that perhaps they have some special commercial charge to be fair and to be able to promote our local business in a reasonable way. And that's all I have. Have a great Labor Day weekend and find some time to eat Norwalk shellfish during the weekend. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Chairman Bartis. Appreciate it. Drive safely. Moving
Thank you,
along
sir.
into kind of lost a picture of everybody here. I'll my way back to that, I guess.
Well, we can hear you.
Yeah. Committee reports, mooring and harbor safety, Commissioner Mangles.
Sure. So this will be a combination of Harbor Master information that was given to us by Harbor Master Lavallo, and from what we came across in no particular order, but I'll start off with DACWA. DACWA, we have 3160 in revenue, 82 nights, 39 reservations. We need, I had to turn a couple away because they draft 7 feet. That's just can't do that. Harbor Master vessel is back. It was moved to be behind the fireboat at the request of Recreation and Parks for the Oyster Festival duration. And of course, we're happy to accommodate anything from RMP. They always help us, so you know we'll help them. harbor safety. So harbor safety, there were 2 vessels that went down during that bad rain and wind. One of them was at Bloom's. It was not Bloom's vessel. It was another oyster vessel that was from Darien that actually sank. But Bloom was fast and great, handled everything perfectly. So they put out the retainment booms, and they raised that vessel. I believe it was the next day, if not the day after. So they really know exactly what to do, and they protected the harbor. And so hats off to Bloom. They actually care about the health of the harbor, so that's good, and for obvious reasons. But the other vessel was a sailboat that was on a mooring. It was in the East Basin, and that was raised by GNC Marine. So they came to the rescue again. So that is fantastic. There is a large barge that is stationed. That's for the Walk Bridge project. Those are on the moorings on the inner harbor. The crane barge has left. However, they do have a mooring, so they can come back, and we welcome anyone to come back to our harbor. The online moorings. So the online mooring system, because of the vessel that sank, that prompted a query that we did of the database. So the harbor master and I, we went through everything, and we found that there were a number of vessels that didn't complete their upload, or mooring holders, I should say, that did not complete their upload of their documentation. That could be registration, proof of insurance, or both, or the mooring inspection data. So we contacted mooring inspectors. They were a little slow in getting the mooring data uploaded into the system. So that's been taken care of, and documentation letters went out to those that needed to upload a document or two to each mooring holder. And we will continue to monitor that. There are quite a few that did upload their document. So other than that, that's all I have. Anybody?
Jeff, was there any repercussion, if I saw correctly, in a
Anybody have
video,
any questions?
the Norfolk Boat Club, up
Okay.
at the head of harbor, there was one of the docks had washed out with one of the boats on it?
Sorry,
there-
what was that?
No, at the Norfolk Boat Club in the harbor, in the last deluge that we had,
Mhm. Yeah.
there was a dock and a boat that had washed off, broke away from the dock.
It mustn't have gone far. It wasn't in the harbor, so
It probably didn't go as far as maybe Divine Brothers, but nonetheless, it did break loose. I thought,
yeah, up at the head of the river was just catastrophic event up there. So
Yeah, I don't know if
docks
there's any
were busted out.
any repercussion, anything that respired from that. 'Cause I
Nothing,
didn't want-
nothing that I've heard of. No,
I thought maybe our harbor master would,
no, I've seen pictures, but that was it.
Is there any thought that the, dam removal of, up in, just south of Wilton had anything to do with more water coming down, or anything like that?
Nobody mentioned that to me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
That's
that
it.
wasn't a flood control dam, was it? It was just an old mill pond.
It was a working dam for something that used to be up there.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't have been used for flood control anyways, right?
No, but it's been
Right.
taken down, it was just removed in the past year, I believe.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. Yeah,
And I don't know if that has any effect on
the rate of flow.
what comes down into the harbor and how fast and so on and so forth.
Well, it's a good point. I never thought about that. Yeah.
That's something we're doing, is removing the dams for for some benefit, but I don't know if there's any downside to that we're not anticipating.
The upside is an old dam wasn't breached in this storm and would have caused a catastrophic flooding. That's why
Yeah.
they take crappy old dams down.
Yeah, I think this one was so Oh, you're all set, Jeff. Any questions for Jeff? Moving along, Mr. McDonald, Finance.
Yes, sir. Did you guys get my email yesterday?
Yes,
Yes.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you.
was great, Chris. Thank you. That was awesome.
So I'll throw it up to see if anybody has any questions on it. And so, you know, we have to run two sets of books, one for the year to year and one for the fiscal year. So since the fiscal year wrapped up and that's what we report to the city, I did it for that and I've put July on there just so we can have an idea of that. What I did, and in July, I got the final accounting from Marianne at the city. So I've been harping all along. We hate that in the 23-24 city year, I guess that's fiscal year 24 for the city, we didn't receive our grant. Well, we received that in June. We got the $20,000 we asked for, a year and a half ago. So we asked for the grant for the fiscal year 25. We asked for another $20,000. We received 15 in July. So we went 18 months without any money, and then we get 2 years worth in 2 months. So that's what's happened on the city front. In terms of the overall year to year, we pulled in $90,000. A lot, did very well with the seasonal moorings with the increase in rate. Dock wall, we had a net of 40,000. Not a net. This was the revenue. Dock wall expenses are down here. And then in terms of expenditures, we spent $47,000. So I'm just going to flip to the other one, which is how we report it to the city. So this was the previous year's, the first column that was just on the form. So the 23-24 budget is here, our request, and we projected a revenue of 77,000 and an expense of 77,000. And in fact, we pulled in 90,000 for an increase, and that includes the health. We did not receive anything from the health department for last fiscal year, so we ended up with a net, and we still overran by like $13,000. I mean, what that's total is $18,000 on our actual money, and then $5,000 less in terms of grants. And in terms of expenses, we projected 77,000. We spent 47,000. We spent roughly $48,000. We underspent by $29,000. A lot of that was projected money for transient mooring maintenance. We underspent that by $10,000. We didn't spend educational and seminar. We will still carrying printing and newsletter costs. We don't really do that anymore. We may need to update that. The no wake buoys, we budgeted that, but then we weren't allowed to do that by deep, I guess. We luckily did not have any abandoned vessels last year, so that we underspent by $3,000. And our planning consultant budget was under by 8,000. So we are sitting on, it's not on this one, I'll flip back. So we are now sitting on, with this year's money, with the new grant, we're sitting on $79,000. So we already have the entire year's budget in hand without any revenue, without realizing any of the revenue for the next 11 months. We have a lot of money. My concern is if we don't actually act on spending the money we've been requesting, then they will not give us any grants in the future. So we need to move forward with things that we've talked about, like additional moorings or a floating dock in the harbor for transients. We need you know, we're gonna need to carry stuff, a contingency for stuff like abandoned vessels, but, there's no guarantee we're gonna spend that. You know, I'll put on a different hat, the plans and recommendation stuff, and I'll speak about it more later. I think we should start investigating dredging, meaning like doing a hydrographic survey so that we know what we need, and that's a multi-year planning process. But I don't think we've had a survey of the harbor done in a while, and I can bring that up in a little bit. If any of the other committees see needs for funds to be expended, we have them. Let's spend it before we lose it.
Chris, we also have that, the small dredging project in the travel lift pits, which we had indicated. I think I sent some information into Alan, into the city.
Forgot about that. But
You know.
That's a significant expense, John.
That is significant expense. So.
Yeah. So we don't, I don't think we have the money to do all the dredging. But
Well, no, I mean, I said we could do it perhaps in piecemeal, but, I mean, I forget exactly. I do have the cost. I don't have that in front of me right now, but I do have the cost of the two projects, the projects that we expended during the last dredging project. And the disposal of that material went into our CAD cell, basically in Norwalk. So there wasn't an expense to transport it off of site into Long Island Sound. So it was disposed of the two CAD cells that were located above the 95 bridge. I mean, before in the area before the 95 bridge.
So
what? I
Well,
have lots
what
of,
about
I have
the,
lots of thoughts on it. I wasn't going to go into that now under the treasurer's report.
what about the mooring tackle we couldn't get because it hadn't been made yet or something? Did we ever spend that money that we'd allocated for the Dockwah moorings, Jeff?
Those aren't, well, whether or not we spent the money already, we don't have the items in hand, so we probably did not spend the money.
Right.
But it will be spent.
Yeah.
September, I think they said that those new moorings will be in.
And it's also
Delivered.
important that we're be sure we're using adequate and high quality tackle for all those too. I mean, that's
Absolutely. Yep.
So that we shouldn't be piecing together stuff from somebody's backyard.
We're not. No, we're
Right.
not.
So what's our projected cost for that?
I already gave you the quote for that.
Okay, I'll look for that one.
So that was just for the buoys, for the mooring
The cost-
balls, if you will.
Chris, the cost that we have from the health department, is that for the water quality interns? Where does that program stand right now?
We're paying water quality interns all summer. So last year we went out, we were out of pocket 8,400. This line here, if you can see what I'm pointing at. In the summer months, it's about 2,500 a month.
Yeah, they're not working under the auspices of Harbor Watch, River Watch, are they?
I don't know. We just pay. I don't know how it does. We also pay expenses. We paid about $3,000.
Yeah, because when we had we had a water quality committee, they were actually operating through the Harbor Watch, River Watch, which we had part expense, as well as Shellfish Commission had a part expense on that as well.
Well, we have no oversight of that right now. We're
Okay.
just
Right.
Chris, the cost for the mooring buoys are $37.54.
Okay. So that's the buoys, but not the tackle.
No tackle, no chain, no tackle, no lines.
Okay.
And we
So-
will be replacing
Right.
lines, inspection. We need to do inspection. We have to follow our own rules. So we will have everything inspected. That's going to be a cost. Chain, if we need new chain, that's going to be a cost. and that's
Yeah.
not cheap.
Yeah,
We all
that's
know
usually a
what that
huge, it's a big percentage of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we put in the budget for this coming year for that. We didn't, we under expended transient mooring maintenance by 10,000.
Yeah.
I didn't distinguish between new and transient. That was all together. And this was, I think this was just money spent in like Norm Edwards and at all for just some general stuff that you had done in 1642. So, there's man, I don't have anything else to say about it, though. That's what that's where the money is. That's where, you know,
Fear not, I'll spend it for you, Chris.
well, be my guest. I mean, we, you know,
Well, it seems to me we've overestimated some of the cost on some of this mooring tackle. On the other hand, we want to be sure that it's the, you know, we have the best quality materials we can have and so on and so forth. So we're not,
sure,
Yeah,
we
scripting on that.
budgeted for it. We just have to spend it before we lose it. That's sort of the
Yeah.
that's the what I'm trying to drive home here.
Do we indeed lose it, or is it just the
Well,
next year's revenue or next year's grant might not be?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever lose it. I really don't know how, you know, the city, I think, you know, it shows, you know, our cash balances. We get a report every month. I've never heard about them taking it away. And our, you know, and this number is on the report from Marianne, the end of the month number. I carry that up to the next one and make sure it balances what the city has so that I'm tracking, I'm categorizing it. They just give me,
We
you
couldn't
know, a
keep
spreadsheet of all the expenses and revenues.
go back to get money. No, you've got money there already.
I think as we move into plans and recommendations, we should talk about earmarking some of this for exactly what Alan was talking about earlier with marketing ourselves. And if we are serious about the creation of the Oyster Trail, what's the budget for that? I know, Chris, you were interested in moving the Street Ends project to the city under the strategic harbor planning process, but maybe that's something we want to take back. And so it happens, you know, just really focus on that. You had made a good leap on that research and stuff, but you know, if we have the funding, let's get at it and make it happen would be my my thinking on it.
Sure. Well, just for the sake of the agenda, I'm done. So if we want to slide right into that, but let's have that
All right.
conversation. And that's
Okay, so just
Segue
continuing
water.
on that. Yeah,
Right.
just continuing on that. I feel like we've been talking about the Oyster Trail for a while. I'm not sure what the status is. I know there was a feeling that it was a bit preempted, but the reality is that it's a great idea and we should make it happen in Norwalk. And clearly, if we have some funding to put behind it, I would imagine it'd be a shared expense with the city. It wouldn't all fall on us, but if we can get Mike to start with, I know Jeff, you've been working on it too, but really start to lay down a timeline for that and a budget for that and try to earmark some of those dollars. And then Chris, you had mentioned a hydrographic survey for the dredging. You know, let's look at what that costs and figure out a timeline for that. And if it's time to put that in the budget. And then my last thing on that is, I think increasing public access to the harbor is huge and something that would be great for promoting the value of the Harbor Commission to the city. I would love to take that back under our wing because I think we could probably make it happen faster. Chris, you're closer to that than I am, but I know, again, we've been talking about that for a while and I think it'd be great to put the pedal to the metal and really, I know we've talked about certain locations that we can make it happen and talk about the implementation of that.
Right. So, I mean, so where that stands is that the study itself has been rolled into the effort that Jessica Vanashek
The strategic harbor planning process,
Right,
yeah.
right. So Amelia, you sent out an email that is, I don't know if that contract is signed or that we're about to have the plan. The word we got from Amelia was that the plan is to have a kickoff meeting, in the beginning of September, once everybody's, back from vacation and that kind of stuff. So, what we can look at down the road, and I'm not sure if this is a year or 2 years down the road, is once they make some recommendations and give us some ideas, then there's actually constructing something and putting some things in place, and whether that for actually improving the street ends. So that how that gets budgeted, what we can contribute to that, that's certainly something. I don't know if we'll be in a position to actually spend any money on that in the next 11 months. I don't know.
So is your feeling that street ends should stay with the city and the strategic harbor planning process as part of the bigger plan?
We've made that commitment. We've sort of
Okay.
signed over our grant money to them. I don't know what the status of that grant money that was awarded
Right.
2 years ago. Hopefully that's still valid. So the planning phase has been wrapped into that. It's in the scope of a contract it's either awarded or about to be awarded and kicked off. So and I think we're all good with that. In terms of the dredging, I don't know. I'm assuming we don't have an open application. We don't have an open permit to do any dredging. So that's a whole process. The beginning of that process is you need a hydrographic survey. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. And actually, I think the survey has to be done within 2 years of the application.
Yep.
Correct me if I make any misstatements, Jeff, you're the expert. But so reviewing our policy, it is incumbent on the commission to do that, to do the survey, and do the planning for the dredging. And you can't, we all have anecdotal information about where we run aground in the harbor, but a hydrographic survey is what you actually need to plan volumes that need to be excavated for removal. So I think we can discuss it a little more, but I think what my thought is that I'll send out an email to solicit everybody's opinions about where we think we should do a survey, and certainly that is the 2 anchorage areas. What we think the condition of the channel, certainly south of the Walk Bridge, I think, and certainly the Walk Bridge area is completely tied up with that, and there is maintenance dredging that's going to have to be done at the end of all that once they remove all kinds of stuff. So the bridge zone is basically locked up for years. Whether the upper harbor whether the upper river needs any attention at this point, I don't know. And then anything really south of the anchorage, in the main channels, I don't know whether we should run surveys on that just to ascertain the condition.
Yeah. The Port Authority did reached out to all the marinas and all the entities in all of Connecticut about the dredging needs. So there's quite a bit of information that's been gathered, perhaps anecdotally rather than with instrumentation and all, about what everybody thinks their needs are. But that might be some kind of a starting point. I've not seen the results of all that effort as yet.
Well, we sent that information, Alan. I think I sent you a copy of what I sent to the DOT. Yeah.
But again, we haven't seen that all summarized, for what the.
What was the source of the information we sent?
Might I just interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I think, Chris, what you're talking about is surveys in the federal channel. That's not our responsibility. The Corps is responsible for that. I forget when.
I thought so too.
Not when their last survey was done, but if we're aware of areas that have shoaled, then we would need to we can report that to the Corps of Engineers. We just recently looked at the most recent survey. It wasn't that long ago that the Corps did. But if there are problems in the anchorage, we need to report those to the Corps. They have a survey crew that works throughout the state. That the survey that, survey crew doing bathymetric surveys, but the survey that John mentioned that we submitted whenever the deadline was, that was being done by the Port Authority for the Corps of Engineers, but it didn't include the federal channels or projects.
This was outside the channel.
It was outside the channel. They communicated with many yacht clubs and boat clubs as well. So what we submitted was the information based on the last dredging of the visitors dock area. And then we also submitted
For Norwest.
the two storm drain areas that the city is responsible for.
Norwest and Total Marine.
But I think if we were interested in doing hydrographic surveys, I think one would be around the visitors dock area. And if there's areas of the channel and the anchorages, then we report that to the Corps. Actually, next week, I expect to be meeting with the Corps in another town, actually with the commanding officer and a bunch of other people. And if there's a need for updating the survey now, but I'll look and see when the last date was.
So Jeff, just for clarification, because I was surprised too that we would be surveying our harbor for the Army Corps to dredge. I assume that they figure out the federal.
Yes,
Okay, that was my first clarification. My second is Jeff Mangles. Is there an area that you want dredged to accommodate deeper draft boats for visitor moorings? Have you sort of mapped that out, and can we be sure to include that?
Yeah, we can map that out, let you know.
Well, it says, I'm gonna read sections from the plan here that I picked up when I was doing the review with Lori. And this is, it says the Harbor Management Commission should work with the Army Corps of Engineers. And I'm gonna skip down, and this is about dredging. And to the extent feasible, condition surveys of navigable depths in the federal channel and anchorage areas should be conducted every 5 years or sooner if necessary. So I don't think that anything's been surveyed in 10 years.
I think I'll check tonight, Chris, but Bruce and I just looked at that when we were looking at the Upper Harbor, when we were looking at the O&G proposal and concerned about the barge traffic. But I believe but if it hasn't been within 10 years, and I don't think that's correct, that's an argument for the Corps to do it now.
Well, yeah, so.
Look and see.
And the other window for dredging that is probably needed is when the Veterans Park docks on the east side, not the visitors dock, but the Veterans Park Marina, when that's removed for reconstruction, it would be a time to do any dredging in and around that, because that actually is in the anchorage area, and that would not be possible to do that at any other time except when it's being rebuilt, and that is not this winter, perhaps next winter or the winter after, depending on grants and the speed of bureaucracy. And are you saying that even in the north and south anchorages, that is still the Army Corps' responsibility to survey?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
No question.
It's a federal anchorage,
Right.
Now, the grant application, when we were working on that for the funds from the Port Authority, that didn't include any dredging, and the permit that the city has for that work does not include any dredging. So it was our assumption that they didn't anticipate that there would be.
The city would not dredge the federal channel.
No, but
The federal, no, I'm saying it's an opportunity for something to happen that could be possible and not possible at any other time before or after.
look at it.
Right? I mean, if that's taken out of the water, that's the only time we're ever going to be able to dredge that area. And it would be a benefit to the city to have, part of the problem with that is that they can't use the backside because it's all silted in. So the one area of the one dock we're most responsible for does not have proper depth, and we can't just wait for the Army Corps to fix it. We have money to do some of this proactive work.
Right. There's no reason that the city can't dredge in a federal anchorage with proper permission to do it.
Well,
I was just saying to do the surveys instead of the Harbor Commission paying for it, that's the Corps of Engineers' responsibility, and they're to do that on a regular basis. The other issue that has to be grappled with in East Norwalk is that the city marina facilities are in the federal anchorage, and that was a real big deal years
Right.
ago. But it can all be worked out.
right, well, then,
But I think Chris is asking, how do we get this going is the.
right. If
I
it's
mean,
supposed-
because it's,
Right.
I mean, whose job is it, to prod the Army Corps of Engineers about doing their maintenance dredging in all these places? I mean, I'm sure it's done on a as needed basis rather than let's dredge for the sake of dredging over there this year.
Right.
But
That's-
surely you would go down the list of the worst places first.
That's the commission's
Well,
responsibility.
We started
Yeah.
with the engineers in 1997.
Yeah.
And the final phase, the 3-phase project was completed in 2014. And that's what John called a Gian task. And based on need and funds. And I remember a good friend of ours was the chief of navigation. And we said, the Corps is responsible for dredging. And he goes, yeah, but that doesn't mean we have to do it. It's based on the need and the availability of funds and having all the permits. So that the commission was, with that I don't know how many millions of dollars, but we calculated all that up. But between 97 and 2014, the millions of dollars that we received for the dredging project, and now, you could argue it's time to start thinking about it again.
I mean, we had funds for three consecutive dredging phases. Phase 1, 2, and 3.
And what is the process for dredging the main anchorage there to a few greater feet of depth, really, for the boats we'd like to have be able to put there? Is that
We have to submit an application based
If
on,
we wanted to do the work in the federal anchorage, we could do that.
Yeah.
We'd have to get approval, and other towns have dredged in both federal channels and federal anchorages. In those instances, the Corps of Engineers has done the surveying work and has got the approvals, because it's easier for the Corps to get those approvals. And then the affected town has done, Milford has done that, has dredged in the federal channel. With city funds. So yeah, if we thought that there was a low spot in the federal anchorage and we wanted to pursue that, we could do that.
I mean, we did that, Alan, when we dredged the visitors dock, we actually had to survey the soil itself. We had to get core sampling based on what the DEP's recommendation was, where we needed core sampling.
But that's not the federal.
That's no, but I know, but that was our personal project at the visitors dock. We paid for, as a matter of fact, the survey, and that was, I think it was Baycheck. No,
But
forget what it.
if there's a problem in the South Anchorage and we wish to pursue it to correct it, I think we would contact the Corps, tell them what the problem is, and work with them indeed to figure out the quickest way to do it. If the city has funds to do it itself, but that's a lot of work. There's also the possibility. Anyway, let's stop.
Yeah, but
We don't
Okay.
know we have a problem until we have a survey, so can we get the
Yes,
Army
that's
Corps
right.
to
Well,
survey?
yeah,
it?
the other piece of that, just is that there's a lot of the boating software, the Navionics, for really any boat who has their depth sounder turned on, that's connected in that network. They gather all the depth information and they know what time it was taken and all like that. So the number of soundings that are available just on charts now can give you some indication of where problems are. It's not where you have to call anybody out with a measuring gear that is quite a bit of information sort of in the public domain to give you an idea where to look or where to start. And I just put that out there.
Chris, while you're at the computer now, I'll do it later tonight, but if you go to the Corps of Engineers eHydro site, you'll find the surveys for the entire country. And that's where they're putting the surveys now instead of on the New England District website. So you can go through the I just forget when the last date was of the Norwalk, but you go to USACE eHydro and the regions of the country, you'll find the latest survey for Norwalk Harbor.
Okay,
When were our federal
you.
channels last dredged?
215.
No, there were three.
Well, the three phases.
The first phase of the dredging project started, I believe it was 2004 and 2005, and that was in the Upper Harbor well, it didn't go between but from the railroad bridge to the head of navigation.
Right.
Then the next phase, a few years later than that, was in the East Basin and part of the depth of the South Norwalk Channel. We have a summary sheet of all the dates and also the volumes and the cost of all that.
We took a time, have a timeline. As a
Yeah,
matter of fact, we made a
can
presentation,
share
slide
that.
presentation.
Tonight, but that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
And who bears that cost?
Well,
The
that was,
Army Corps of Engineers
Well, no,
we had applied for funding.
it's interesting
to
because,
support them.
Yes.
oh, yes, it's a federal dredging project.
But we submitted.
Right, but you're saying the Harbor Commission pays for it?
No. We applied for funding through our congressional representatives
But just
through
Okay.
through special appropriations, which is funding does not exist anymore.
the Corps of Engineers has an annual budget. And so they submit their budget to Congress. And so
Right.
Norwalk doesn't really stack up very well against Baltimore Harbor or Boston Harbor, the harbors like that. So it can't compete with the other harbors for the normal Corps budget process. So what took place when we first got these funds was called
Energy
it's sort of a slang term is an earmark, but it's also called I forget what the other, so the Congress adds it to the core budget. So we went through that process 3 times to get what they call congressional adds to the Corps' normal budget. And then that process was eliminated when President
2000,
Obama's first term. And so subsequent to that, the state of Connecticut we didn't get any money from this, established a separate program for providing state bonded funds for projects that wouldn't get federal funds. And that was to be administered through the DOT and then subsequently the Port Authority. And that project has ended now. That program has ended now. But if the federal, I was saying if there's a small part of the project that we would be able to do it ourselves, but we'd never be able to do the main navigation channel.
Which is
So-
that, Chris?
That is the survey from 2023 on the eHydro site.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so it's there. They've been doing maintenance or
And-
whatever. They've been doing periodic. This is what it looks like. This is 2023 Wilson Point, 2023 Norwalk Harbor,
Wow.
2018, 2021.
Yeah.
So if we want to do a deep dive on, how much it's, how much it's silting up or whatever, there's a lot of information here. This would be everything we would need that I was thinking we might have to do ourselves.
And if you notice the section on the Upper Harbor and the extent to which the depths are less than the 9-foot authorized depth. And that was our priority, 20 years ago or more because of the barge traffic up there and the commercial traffic. That's interesting. The only user of that 9-foot depth now is Divine Brothers.
Right. Yeah, well, it's not going to be ONG anytime soon.
Well, that red area is less than the authorized depth.
Right, that's what I would assume, yeah, because it should be 12.5 for the main channel here, and here we are into our anchorage.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're down in the main channel now, but
So
So Jeff, if those programs have ended, where does the money come from? You still have to go to the state then and ask for it.
well, that's
a good question.
That's to be figured out.
Good question.
How do you do this? The Corps has gotten some money. In fact, they're working on a project for 30 years to dredge an area in Southport Harbor. It may happen this fall. But that's $1.5 million. The Corps is working on a project to dredge the main channel in Greenwich Harbor now. That's up in the neighborhood of $10 million.
Right.
Where that money will come from is still. So yeah, there's no certainty in any of this stuff, Lori. It's the funding was the biggest problem that we went through.
We were written up in the New York Times several years ago as being a pork barrel project for dredging.
But that
It was yeah. Really defense about that, but that's what happened.
That's how those earmarks were described.
So how do we move forward here?
London, New Haven, and Bridgeport are the 3 harbors that are kept on pretty much in the federal navigation project.
Right.
Why don't we get together and look at where the depths are and if it.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what the priority is.
Right. So I think, Jeff, if you, I mean, you're certainly welcome to go over this yourself, but I think our transient moorings are up in the north. So you're looking at the same thing I am. I can't read my guy screen here. Up at the north end, closest to Vets Park. But the southern half of the anchorage, I've totally messed this up. Where'd it go? Southern half of the anchorage is I've totally lost it. It is like 8-9 feet. So if we want to put some, oh, here we go. I got it back now. I mean, to the southern end, you're at 12 feet. That doesn't even need to be dredged. 9, 8. That goes all. So here's the lighthouse, the spindle, and this part is where the fairway is kept free for traffic. Everything to the south of that is really, 8-9 feet, at least 7 feet everywhere. So if we, if we want to put in, and there's some buoys down there, and the walk bridges stuff is just to the south of the fairway that cuts through the anchorage. In this zone, there's certainly area within the anchorage for 10-foot depth, if not 7-8 foot depth.
I think this is committee work to sit down and.
Sure, yeah.
Come up with priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, it's just great to see all these resources that we don't all know that we have. And I think this is terrific, terrific stuff.
Right.
Well, the main thing is figuring out what the cost per bucket is,
Well, what is the
Exactly.
status? And we need to move on, but what's the status of disposal in Long Island Sound right now?
Well, that has to be tested, Alan. You have to test it and make sure it's you have to test both areas. You have to test where you dispose of it, and you have to test what you're disposing.
But that's part of the study that's, well,
Yeah.
not the regulatory stuff, but that survey from the Corps was to plan ahead for dredge material disposal. Well, one of the things they're looking at now is a CAD cell that would accommodate the contaminated material from Greenwich Harbor, and maybe some other regional harbors in western Long Island Sound. But the federal projects can supersede New York's objections to the
Disposal,
private projects being.
But what I've heard is commercial dredging prices per cubic yard have gone up a lot.
Oh, they have.
They have.
Yeah.
It also depends on how far you have to dispose of the material.
Well,
So
and I think this is all just Western Long Island Sound. If you have to go to,
Well,
you have to
well,
go to one of the.
there's a Darien site, which is
Right, that's what yep.
that's reserved for very pristine material.
Well, there's also, there is also if it's really contaminated, then it has to go for stage 2 testing or something, clam and shrimp
That
test.
requires live
Clams and shrimp.
clams and shrimp. Yeah.
Yeah,
they
and
test-
if
right.
it fails that, then it gets trucked or
We had to go
it gets
through
barged down to New Jersey, gets offloaded, and then it goes up to,
It's very costly.
gets trucked up
Very-
to
right.
New York or Pennsylvania.
Right. The price starts at expensive and goes up from there.
Yes.
Yeah, I just stopped just quickly, Alan, but we spent years on this with the Harbor Management Association.
Yeah.
Because one of the biggest issues was that the state of Connecticut was not in any way trying to facilitate these projects or advance these projects. They were only acting to regulate them, which is different than what other states have done.
Especially
So,
Rhode Island and
We
Massachusetts.
spent
Yeah.
literally years with the Harbor Management Association writing papers and analysis of the dredging process in Connecticut. And as a result, the Connecticut Maritime Commission was formed, and also the State Dredging Project Coordinator. And then that evolved into the DOT's Maritime Division and now the Connecticut Port Authority. So this stuff, and I don't know if it was Tony Mobilia, but he had it was the front page of the Norwalk Hour, and one of the main headlines, or wasn't all the way across the page, was about the Norwalk Harbor dredging process. And Tony's quote was that the dredging process was like a relay race in the Twilight Zone. And that's exactly what it was at the time. But anyways, but it doesn't end. I mean, it's just evolves, and then different components of it, and you just have to keep working at it.
Yeah, Connecticut is probably one of the worst states to have, to carry out a dredging project. Rhode Island is probably one of the best to do a dredging project. Because they're allowed to keep CAD cells available for disposal, and they keep them open.
But Rhode Island and Massachusetts coastal
Massachusetts.
management programs were actively working, not just to regulate projects, but to
Coordinate them.
accomplish them. Because that was part of the goals of their coastal management program.
They-
Dredging to maintain safe navigation and the state's harbors.
That's what we thought the Connecticut Port Authority would take charge of doing, but they're very short-sighted on this.
Does the proximity of New York State complicate this because they don't have need to dredge? I mean, is that's
That
part
was
of the
part of
problem
the
as well?
part of the old Ambro Amendment, Alan, that goes way back. You don't want to get involved in that.
We could talk about this. for the
They have
next-
jurisdiction from shore to shore if they wanted to.
Okay,
Okay,
so
well,
there's
so
a
as,
lot of obstacles.
Yeah,
yeah, and so maybe under plans and recs, I can sort of coordinate the efforts to make this happen, just reaching out to Jeff and John and Chris and sort of figure out what next steps are, what we have to research, what we have to figure out, and how to keep the ball rolling on it.
Thanks, Lori.
Happy to do that. Yep.
That would be,
So,
that's
okay. So, I mean, because I don't know anything about it, but I'm happy to sort of, coordinate the work. In terms of harbor management plan review, which also falls under plans and recs, small but mighty group who's taking a look at it. Chris McDonald, Mike Matthews, and Jeff Mangles and Bruce. And of course, we have input from Jeff's original input. I've reached out to half a dozen coastal engineers and consultants, John Hiltz, Tim Bartolomeo, however you say his name, from Sound Engineering, Tom Ryder from Land Tech, Azure D. Slaker from Race Coastal. And anyway, the feedback from them on how they use it is, first of all, most of them are very familiar with it inside and out. And they do refer to it in particular to capture language that will help support why it does, why it is consistent with the harbor management plan when they present to us. So that's great. I mean, it's useful. There's some feedback that there's a lot of redundancy in it. And there's some feedback that there's a desire that it was more definitive rather than saying things like, that markers should be a sufficient distance or appropriate width. If it was more specific in what our requirements are, that would be more helpful. Anyway, it was good feedback. And so the status is now each of us has a chunk of the plan, a chapter or two, Chris, Mike, Jeff, myself, and taking a look at it for obvious updates we can do. And then, the outstanding issue is the question of what authority we have, which Jeff Seven has spoken a lot about. But anyway, at least it'll be we'll be able to give a good content review.
keep in mind that we still have to fight that big battle, Lori.
I understand. No, I
Authority,
totally understand the
because
question of
it's
authority.
constantly being used against the other commissions. In this, Fairfield, Greenwich, Stanford, they're all being held accountable that you do not have the authority to review applications.
But there's another
I
issue.
understand.
There's another issue too, and Lori started to bring this up about the degree to which the plan should be specific.
Mm.
And if we fall into that trap, in my opinion, we're falling into DEP's faulty argument that they only have to listen to the Harbor Commission if it's with respect to something that's spelled out ahead of time in the harbor management plan. And we felt that that's just illogical, because the plan can't have an answer to every issue
project,
that may
right.
arise. And if it did, there would be no sense to having the commission. It would just be a rule book. So the idea of appropriate length and based on conditions and so forth, that presumes, which is necessary, that the Harbor Commission will make case-by-case decisions and that the answers won't be spelled out ahead of time. That's the thing that we have to fight deep for. Deep, well, I won't get into it now, but you fall into the trap of agreeing to Deep's argument that they only have to listen to something that's spelled out ahead of time. then you defeat the purpose of the commission making case-by-case decisions and using its judgment by applying the policies. And that's, for
Correct.
example, the Walk Bridge project. We couldn't put in the plan, how water quality should be
Right.
monitored during the bridge
Right.
project. But we've got policies to protect water quality and monitor
Exactly.
the impacts of construction projects. And that provides the basis for making good recommendations and having experts help us. But to argue that they didn't have to listen to our recommendations for the Walk Bridge project because the harbor management plan didn't say anything about monitoring water quality when the Walk Bridge was rebuilt, that's
ridiculous.
absurd in my
Ridiculous.
opinion.
Right. I totally understand what you're saying, Jeff. It just, to me, I understand the desire for a coastal engineer to have more specific guidance in the plan, because when it reads very sort of loosey-goosey vague, you should go at an appropriate speed or keep an appropriate distance. And so if we want to have this a really useful tool, is it worth trying to be more specific where we can?
We also,
Anyway, we can take a look.
we also want the flexibility to be able to review a developer or an applicant.
I totally
Yes.
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want to trap yourself in a corner, Lori.
Yeah.
You'll
Okay.
trap
Well,
yourself
I
in a
guess
corner.
the question is, do we want to play by the old rules, or do we want to try to force them going while we're forcing them to go back to the old rules? Because that is the new rule.
Well, that court order has really shot us in the foot right now. We have to
Sure.
we somehow
But
loosen that strap.
last night in Norwich, Connecticut, one of the Norwich council members is going to reach out to their state representatives and try to move again a legislative change. Whether we'll be successful or not, I don't know. But I think that whatever updates we make, we want to put into the plan what we think it should be, not be followed by the court case and let DEP deny it. And
Okay.
Well,
and that's what the other towns are doing now. Force DEP.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's good.
if the other towns have their representatives helping out, why can't we have Senator Duff? If he's willing to help us out with street ends, why can't he help
We-
us out with this
we
very
need-
major
We
project?
need somebody on the DEEP subcommittee. It doesn't get out of committee.
That's correct. As a matter of fact, that's what happened.
And we don't have any reps in the committee,
The-
because
the-
I met with all of them.
The
when we were making this effort.
environmental committee, right, exactly.
We don't have anybody in the environmental subcommittee,
And
and
Mr.
it didn't make it out of committee. So that's the political avenue. We got to get it out of committee.
Okay.
Also regarding the plan, nothing so dramatic as all this. I think we need to update the graphics in the plan.
Yeah.
And I think the way to do that, and I'm going to ask for Amelia's help at this point, is to coordinate it with the city's GIS mapping system, so that my goal would be to have a layer that anybody could look at on the city's GIS site that would have the navigation channel, that would have maybe the shellfish, the recreational shellfish zones, and all the other information we display in the plan in terms of graphics, that we pull those from the city's GIS site, so that it's a uniform thing. We could have, we could have the navigation channels in those, every corner has a northing and easting survey point on that, that they should be able to they should be able to plug that in, because I mean the plan that was on the website is really old graphics that they were updated a little with these and I'm going to editorialize slightly odd looking infrared aerials that make all the trees red, which are kind of cool but also kind of disconcerting, using those. But that's just done with aerial photography and superimposing that. I think doing it in a GIS system is the way it's done now, and I think we should be part of the city's effort on that. And then it's available for everybody to use in a very direct format. So Amelia, do you know who manages the city's GIS site?
Yeah, we have the city has a GIS analyst, and that sounds like something we could easily do. I think that's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Good. Can
Excellent
you put me
idea.
in touch with them? Are they in-house? Is that a consultant?
No, we have one GIS analyst. She normally does, if she needed a consultant, she would be the person to reach out to, but I think she would be able
Sure.
to do this.
Okay, so she coordinates it even if it has to go. All right. So I'd like to start with them and maybe, I'll scrub the report for all the information we want to have transferred. I suppose, Lori, at some point we'll have a review session. I mean, I'm not there yet. I've about 3/4 of the way through my report, my chapter, but so before we reach out to them, I think we should at least, have an agreement on what we want to update, what information we need to have updated into the GIS.
GIS is an excellent idea, Chris. That's just
Nice.
terrific. That's wonderful. We all set on that, Lori?
Yep, we are.
Moving right along, Mr. Christopher White.
Hello all. To be completely honest, I do not have the newsletter ready for tonight. I apologize. My month has been upside down crazy, but I just was having an idea that I was thinking about as we were looking through this or talking through this. With kind of upping, I hear a lot, we want to up our marketing efforts. We have all this information and we're looking for places to house these resources. We're trying to get more communication to the people. So I looked up and also we have a little bit of cash to burn, and we can, the domain norwalkharbor.com and norwalkharbor.org and all these things are all available. We could just buy it and make a website. And on that website, we could just host, the newsletter content that we have, links to the tide tables, to the weather updates, resources from the harbor, and make it an actual, links to the DocWAP, mooring reservation thing. We can make it a really kind of usable resource for visiting the harbor. We could also own it before anyone from the town anyone else tries to buy it, which is fun. And then, we could then also take that, and what I think would be interesting, and to Lori's point, kind of encouraging people using the harbor is we then, basically you generate a QR code, you stick it on a small poster that you make, learn more about the harbor, whatever it might be, and then you just start sticking those basically on the end of every street end that goes toward the water and at the beach and at Cap Pasture and at the marinas, and they can scan that and go straight to a website that then has everything that they need to know about Norwalk Harbor, cruising in Norwalk Harbor, can have updates from us. You can have RSS feeds to the auto-populate with any information from some desired partners we'd want to have. We could have the shellfish guys could get in on it. I think we can pretty easily make it a fairly simple resource, and much to my surprise, all of these domain names are completely free, available. It's $49.99 $43.99 for 3 years of ownership of the domain name. So it's
yeah, there's a lot of, we never ever talk about kayaking in the islands, but that's another actually very popular thing that we just never cover that. We're all, I mean, there's not, but that's certainly information, and people enjoy certainly a lot of kayaking that goes on with the islands, and they're, I mean, maybe that's something we should, if we're gonna be promoting the harbor in general, that's a big asset of the harbor is that.
And I think, one of the challenges is with anything, this is from, a lifetime working in print media, is you start putting together a story, you get everything done, you lay it all out, you print it, and then it's 4 weeks late. Whereas if we have, obviously, as we all know, we've watched this revolution happen. Digital is super fast. We could be building these things as we go instead of, laying out big 6-page spreaded, nice looking newsletter. We could just be getting this stuff just up. We could have the minutes. We could edit down and find out what interesting from that. There's a lot of, just that dredging document that we were just looking at, there's just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of resources that are out there, but they're in just disparate places across, there's no kind of central focus for.
But you could link to all that from our.
Exactly.
Place. It's fabulous.
You could buy this on WordPress, and you can, I do this quite a bit, is you stand up a fairly, a perfectly serviceable, fairly nice and simple, straightforward, resource-rich website without too much. The modern stuff is extremely plug and play.
So I'm kind of a Luddite at all this stuff, but we have a Norwalk Harbor Commission kind of website that we don't do very much with, other than putting up Can we use that? I mean, is that,
Is that the Norwalk Harbor Commission? Is that like the portion of the state's site?
no,
Or do we have our own site?
we have our own.
What is it?
I'd have to look.
We have a Facebook page. I don't know if we have a
Facebook.
website.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I
That's
think,
right,
I think a Facebook
Yeah, I'm
page is
sorry.
just the nature in which a Facebook page is laid out. It's just a more kind of chaotic organization of information. It's not really intended to be.
Yeah.
You don't go to a Facebook page to kind of see it as a resource guide. It's more of,
Yeah.
it's Facebook. Whereas
Yeah.
like if we just built out a website separate from that snooze fest that's on the town's website, if we just built one out with, you could have, again, just all of this information, and you can build it so it just everything will just update. It'll just, just pull in the information from what the tides are. Boom, here they are for the day. And I find myself, I'm constantly looking up what the tide is, what's going on out there. Are we gonna have enough room to go do a pickup at the town dock and the 5 mile for Tuesday night racing? It's something that I think we could probably,
Well, it's just a
push
link, right?
forward.
It's just,
And also, just if
Yeah.
you have a booth at say you get a booth at the Oyster Fest, and you want to say, oh, where do I go to learn more? You gotta drive them. Boom, here you go. You can
give them a card with the, what you
QR
call it?
code, you have a website, you have
QR code, right?
a functioning, simple URL, go to norwalkharbor.com, boom, you're done. And then, not to get too nutty, but then you could also, you could try to monetize it and start selling banner ads to brokerage guys and
Yeah.
parts people and the restaurants and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think a website is a
Script
great
and go
idea.
advertise to Docwa. There's things that you can do to kind of make, to stand these up and make them a much more serviceable and frankly kind of useful resource to us.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So that
I mean,
might,
it's so great. And I think that the only issue I see is that Chris White is going to have to be a commissioner forever. You can run it.
well, I think
I
it could
mean,
be a
obviously,
good
because it
project.
has to be maintained and updated, and
Yeah.
you want to keep it vibrant if
Yeah,
you
no,
want
I mean,
people to go to it.
I think the way that we do this, and I do this with a lot of companies, is you build it, you stand it up, you keep it all kind of in staging, you make sure it works, the functionality's there, it looks the way you want it, et cetera, and then you push it live. But I think it'd be, certainly a good kind of winter project to get done to go into the spring and into the season in 25 with a kind of robust digital resource and kind of
I think it's great.
asset
I think it's
database.
wonderful. I just,
Yeah.
About it, but that's interesting.
You can have the harbor the harbor management plan could be that, it's
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff that we have, and we're always trying to think of how to, again, just make it the database. Just make it
Can I make a motion to fund this?
a-
I mean, I don't want to jump to put the cart in front of the horse, but we might as well. We're looking for things to fund. Why don't we put, $5,000 towards this and see if we
Yeah.
get done by, January, February of next year. I think that what Chris is saying is, brilliant because it's so simple. Whatever
Yeah.
our website is, it's better than what we have right now.
I agree.
And yeah, and again, I can't believe that norwalkharbor.com, norwalkharbor.org, all these things are just available, which is crazy. So
Just inform, how did they become, who, did somebody create them, or is it? How
no,
did
you can go to a domain search and you just search anything you want. So like some guy, case in point, he bought the domain name harriswaltz.com and is now just sold it to the Democratic National Convention for a bunch of money. And they took it because he had the domain name. Anyone
Right.
could do it. I think the guy that had DallasCowboys.com made like millions of bucks in the early 90s.
Right.
So you can
Those
just
people,
search who owns
yeah.
these.
So nobody's squatting on norwalkharbor.com.
Not yet. No.
We have to buy out.
I mean, I might
I
start
mean,
buying every harbor.
Not
watch
yet.
out.
Well,
I see it.
Shopping is
we have to be
good, right?
careful about that, because Norwalk Harbor is in Norwalk Harbor in California as well, and also in Ohio.
So anybody here around this conversation that buys our domain is but be on the a particular
my
list that we'll
M.
have,
Gifford, what the hell?
Just remember it
M.
is
Gifford.
recorded.
Who knows that?
This guy's auctioning it off for
Exactly.
$1,000.
This meeting is recorded. So
Yes.
Better jump
So-
on it.
Chris, great great ideas. I think that, and that's something that, you know, you're absolutely right. We can you can do it as you go and it doesn't have to fit on 8 pages or 6 pages. It just has life of its own, which is terrific. The only question will be is if the city's going to want to have their finger in that somehow, but that's something a bridge will have to cross at some point, you know?
I mean, you know, you can just make it you don't need to say it's funded or supported by the I mean, maybe I guess you technically do, but I mean, you know, I don't know if you have to say it's funded by or supported by or in partnership with the Harbor Management Commission. We just make it a resource of,
Yeah.
You know, just harbor stuff. But yes, I mean, obviously we could run anything by, make sure it's all up to snuff and above board.
Great.
Hmm.
Very, 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 very welcome conversation. Thank you, sir. Anybody else have questions or things for Chris? Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Water quality, TBD. Anybody have any knowledge, Jeff? What's going on?
I don't have any knowledge about what's going on, but somebody I ran into the other day was talking about the work on I-95 with the new interchange from Route 7 to I-95. I've avoided looking at that, but the concern was that it's changing drainage from I-95. And I don't know if this is correct or not. And it's directing additional drainage into Norwalk Harbor, either through or near Oyster Shell Park. And I have no idea whether this is a actually happening or not, but somebody asked me about that and if I knew anything about it.
Well, maybe the DEP should know.
Maybe I'll give a call to the DEP.
I haven't
because
read
it-
anything.
Because I-95, that drainage was a big problem at one point, and there were improvements made, and because of those improvements, the mall was able to cut into the big storm drain.
Yeah.
That previously had come from I-95. So what this concern is now is it's either directing or creating more stormwater runoff that's going to the harbor. And again, I don't know if this is factual. It was just whoever the person who told me this, you know, just didn't make it up. I mean,
Well, there's been a huge project going on at underneath exit 16, you know, right there with a lot of plumbing, pipes underground, stuff like that, going, I presume, from the highway into the river somewhere.
yeah, that's the point. That was
Is that the problem? What you're talking about?
this. I think I don't know. This is just a
Okay.
person who told me that this work was creating additional drainage and it was going into Norwalk Harbor. And did I know anything about it? And
Huh. Yeah, it's down by the St. Anne's Club down that way. So there's been a lot of
That was part of the
lot
runoff. No, that was part of the runoff
Yeah,
over the,
that's
not, over the,
different, yeah.
over the Yankee Doodle Bridge.
right.
That was already in the making. As a matter of fact, that started probably about 15 years ago.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
When Knopp was mayor, where we brought that up before the DEP, and they decided that, well,
You know, this
Okay.
is up by night. Well, anyway, I'll see if I
All right.
can help them deep.
Is there any new business? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Chris. Second,
I don't sit on that, yeah.
Mr. White. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Good night, you all. Thank you for your time, your
Thanks,
efforts. I
everybody.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Take care.
Good night.